Them releasing every single phone that looks the same isn't the only roller coaster, it's their color game too. Some shades become instant classics, others make us scratch our heads until we see them in real life and suddenly go, wait, that's actually kind of fire. From the OG models in 2007 all the way to the titanium aluminum era pros now, Apple's played it safe most of the time with black, silver, and white, but every once in a while they dropped a color that completely stole the show. These are the ones that set trends, sparked hype, and in some cases even crashed Apple's own website because everyone had to have it. So yeah, hi you beautiful specimens, this is my list of the top 7 best iPhone colors Apple has ever released. Product Red. Starting strong off with a color that has been around the iPhone 7 era and every time since, it's been a fan favorite. The rich candy apple red instantly catches your eye, no case, no skin, just bright red confidence. It stood out in the Apple Store lineup and honestly, to this day it still does. And it also carried meaning. Every purchase contributed to the HIV and AIDS program and later expanding into the COVID-19 relief, which made buying one feel a little more impactful than just picking a flashy color. But here's the thing, Apple quietly phased out the red option. By the time we got to the iPhone 15, 16, and now the 17, product red is just gone.
Why?
Well, part of the reason is that the partnership is winding down, or rather it winded down. Apple's contract with the product red organization wasn't renewed in some way, and Apple hasn't really spoken about it much since. Some people think the demand just wasn't there compared to the other colors. Others think Apple didn't like being tied to one specific charity initiative every year. Regardless, the only knock with the color is that it aged differently depending on lighting and fingerprints, and after a couple of months, you'd notice micro scratches that glossy red love to show grease marks. Apple could have just made red as their own in-house color. Call it crimson, ruby, whatever. Imagine a titanium or aluminum 17 Pro in a deep Ferrari style red. Oh, I'm sorry, Rosso Cosa, Rosso Magello, and Rosso Imola, or whatever kind of red they like to call it Ferrari in Italian language. It would have sold out instantly. Instead, we've gone 3 generations now without a red iPhone, and it feels like a big missed opportunity. But man, you'd be lying if you said you didn't turn your head when somebody walked by with a product red iPhone. It stood out in a crowd of blacks, silvers, and many shades of blue, and right now, especially with Apple experimenting with bolder tones like that cosmic orange, it feels like the perfect time to bring it back. Honestly, if Apple announced the product Red 17 or 18 tomorrow, I think half the internet would go crazy. Midnight Green. If James Bond or any of the Aston Martin racing factory drivers needed a phone to match their Aston Martins, it would be Midnight Green. This was Apple's first real attempt at saying, alright, we're gonna step outside black, white, and gold. And the gamble worked because this color hit at a time when most premium phones were silver or black slabs. Suddenly, you had this deep military styled, almost forest like green that screamed pro, but in a stealthy way. Marketing wise, it gave Apple something fresh to show in ads, and in person, depending on the lighting, it shifted to a subtle green gray to almost a mossy black. That versatility made it feel premium. It wasn't neon or loud, but you knew you had something special. The downside is that the fingerprints, that matte texture was better than gloss, but oils would still show up. Also, under some indoor lighting, it kinda looked swampy. But hey, people love this shade so much that resale prices on the midnight green models stayed high for a while. Midnight green is basically the color that walked, so Apple could later run the Sierra Blue, Deep Purple, and of course, the titanium models. Oh, speaking of which, Sierra Blue was Apple leaning into pastels, which was unusual for Pro models. Instead of going bold like Pacific Blue, this was a softer, lighter, almost like sky blue mixed with silver. Some people said it looked like an ice cube, others like a baby shower color, but either way, it had presence. The vibe that it brought, almost like Apple was trying to channel the aesthetic of their pastel iMacs from the early 2000s. The color gave the Pro line a fresh identity that wasn't just black, white, or gold. The softer Sierra was perfect for people who didn't want to scream, "Look at me! I've got a Pro!" but still wanted something unique. Although in the photos, the Sierra often looked washed out, but in hand it had a stunning satin-like shine. Overall, Apple did a good job of making the shade feel alive and not flat. It did become a rare collector's edition. Deep purple, the new definition of a moody luxury. It wasn't Barney purple or Fanta grape soda purple, it was just a deep royal shade that sometimes just looked black until you caught it under the right light. Then, boom, a whole spectrum of purple tones revealed itself, almost like an Easter egg built onto your phone. It was one of those you have to see it in person colors, because Apple even leaned into it with the marketing, making the deep purple the hero color of the iPhone 14 Pro line. And honestly, it deserved it, because it felt luxurious, almost royal, and way more interesting than just another shade of silver or gold. It also worked beautifully with the new dynamic island at the time. The color made the front of the phone look seamless, like it was one piece of hardware and software blending together. Overall, the color defined the 14 Pro's lineup aesthetic. Deep purple became an instant cult favorite, and it's a color that I like to call the rich villain color. The kind of phone you imagine Lex Luthor pulling out of his pocket. Deep purple is one of those colors that people still talk about as one of Apple's best risks. And boy, what a risk it was. Pacific blue. It didn't feel like much of a color, it was more like a statement to say that Pro models deserve exclusives. It was bold but not gaudy, it looked serious but at the same time very approachable, and importantly it showed off Apple's new flat edge design really well. In certain lighting in the navy, in others it leaned to a more dark teal. The stainless steel band added this premium jewelry effect, but the matte glass kept it grounded. Pacific blue was the first time I noticed people actually buying cases to show off the color instead of hiding it. That's a huge impact. It also aged decently. The stainless band was scratch prone, but if you're rough with your phone, you'd see the battle scars faster than with aluminum. Also, Pacific blue was a color that looked a bit different in photos versus in the hand. People filming unboxing sometimes complained that the blue was washed out on camera, but in hand, it had a depth that photos couldn't fully capture. And when people look back on the 12 Pro, Pacific blue is basically the face of that generation. Legacy-wise, I think it is iconic. It set a standard for future Pro colors and showed Apple that shoppers would buy into a color identity for the Pro line, not just a spec sheet. It aged well on resale prices too. Used Pacific blue Pros tended to hold value because people wanted that exact look. It might not have had charity ties like Product Red, but in terms of style, it defined its year. 16 Plus Ultramarine. Finally giving the non-Pro models some bold modern colors that felt premium instead of a kid's toy. And dropping with the iPhone 16 Plus, Ultramarine popped. It had depth than the pastel blues Apple experimented with earlier. A very lovely richness, almost like a luxury car paint job. It came with a very subtle teal, a very mature Barbie pink, and a very simple black and white. These colors worked because of the frosted matte finish. It gave them texture, reduced fingerprints, and made the aluminum frames look more high-end than any previous base model. Suddenly, you didn't feel like you had to buy a Pro just to get a premium-looking phone. And culturally, these colors connected with a younger audience too. TikTok trends, unboxing, aesthetic shots, you name it. Some thought Ultramarine could read too dark in dim light, almost black. Others love that about it. It can be stealthy or striking depending on the angle. A few reviewers joked that it was the perfect color for people who want to be noticed, but only if you know where to look. But I'll be real, Ultramarine is one of those colors that sold with personality. It made the base model aspirational, pushed the trend of premium finishes expanding down the lineup, and made Apple's color playbook more interesting. Thank God. Now before I reveal my number one, it wouldn't be rude to mention some honorable mentions. And here they are. And finally at number one, natural titanium. The switch to titanium was more than just durability, it changed the color palette forever. Introduced with the iPhone 15 and 16 Pro, it wasn't just marketing fluff. Titanium made the phone 10% lighter, more durable, and gave it this unique brushed finish that stainless steel never could. The one that did the most flexing in many people's hands was the natural titanium. It looked raw, industrial, like something straight from aerospace engineering. as it should when you discover the fact that they were using grade 5 titanium, the same type of titanium that NASA has used on spacecraft components, including, yes, if you guessed it right, the Mars Lunar Rover chassis, and other structures that needed to survive insane stress and temperature extremes. So yeah, technically your iPhone and a car on Mars have something in common. Pretty wild bragging rights for a phone you're just using to scroll TikTok on. But the reactions about it were split when it was launched and unveiled, no doubt. Some fans wanted glossy finishes back, others thought titanium felt too understated, but over time, people warmed up to it when they saw it in person. These finishes aged beautifully. Unlike glossy models that scratched or collected smudges, titanium resisted fingerprints and actually looked better over time. That's rare for some Apple colors, and the more you used it, the more it grew on you. And of course, the competition couldn't let Apple have all the shine. As soon as Apple dropped the whole titanium speech, Samsung rolled out the Galaxy S24 and S25 Ultra with titanium, and the marketing was basically the same. The only difference was Apple's shift from stainless steel felt like a revolution, while Samsung's switch from aluminium was more like, hey, don't forget us, we got it too.
Yeah, boy. That's it.
Still, they made sure titanium became the new buzzword for every flagship phone. Classic copy-paste moment. But regardless, the Pro line finally looked what the name finally promised. Professional, sleek, modern, premium, but not trying too hard. It's only a bummer that titanium only stuck around for a short time before Apple started playing with the new finishes in the 17 line. Overall, I'd say titanium finishes are going to be remembered as Apple's most grown-up color decision. The kind of thing that 5 years from now, people will still respect. And I think that would be enough for me. So there you go, my top 7 iPhone colors ever, plus a few extras. And now I want to know from you, what's your favorite iPhone color of all time? Which color would you like to see on the Pro iPhone? Drop it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.